Hello, welcome to Box to Board. Tonight we are going to look at Cyberpunk Red. Quite excited about this. Just a quick flick through and I'll do a first impressions video soon. Yeah, there we go. So this is Cyberpunk Red, quite chunky rulebook. I don't have an awful lot of experience with Cyberpunk Red, or the old Cyberpunk, simply because I got into RPGs a little bit later, and to be honest, I heard rumours this was coming out, and I love Cyberpunk as a genre, but this was something that was new to me. You've got contents at the front, as you would expect, and you can sort of see the different order. One thing, the artwork's really nice. There's a little story that you get to kind of get you into the world of it, which is quite cool. I say little story, it's quite long actually, and that's quite cool. And I like that. View from the edge, which is quite an interesting way of trying to organise the book. So it tells you a bit about what the different things are, and what's going on, and also these sort of bits here that are going. So want to know about Night City, skip to the page, want to know, and it sort of is like an index but plus, you know, it gives you, I quite like this. I think this is very helpful because it is quite a complex setup of book. I think it's quite dense. Then there's a bit about role playing, particularly about, you know, and this is really aimed at people who've never role played before. It's actually very well written from what I've saw of it. Then there's a really nice bit about street slang and how that works. We get these little advert pages every now and again, which are interesting. The bit Soul and New Machine is basically about, I think the best way to describe it is really a bit about character generation to some extent and how people work. And then you've got a summary of the 10 rules in Cyberpunk Red, and then for each one you get a lot more detail, and these are really cool. I really enjoy these from what I've seen, and I haven't read them all yet, but I'm in the process, and they are kind of good, and I like the rules. Again, I know that some of you will be very familiar with this stuff. I really wasn't, and I've been quite intrigued by it. What I did notice was this. I think this has been this is really good. I'm going to be doing a video on this soon about how to generate characters. There are 3 different ways of generating characters in the system. The first is street rats, which are basically templates. Then the second is edge runners, fast and dirty, and then there's complete package, which is a calculated method, a lot more complex, a lot deeper. And actually I quite like that. And then what they do is they give you this sort of guidance page as well, which is kind of cool. So it kind of guides you through the process. So the street rats and the edge runners are pretty similar in many respects. And then the complete package is different, and it gives you a bit more about it as well. So I enjoy, I think that's a really good way to do it. Then they've got a bit about Tales from the street, running the life path. So this is actually how you go about it. Now the thing that will strike you whenever you go through this is there's an awful lot of tables, and the way you generate a character has, you know, if you use a street rat, it's very different. I think it just jumps straight into another, you know, it's a lot quicker from what I can recall. But I'm completely wrong about some of that, but you do a lot of rolling. So you start off with cultural origins, and you roll a D10 to get an idea, or you choose one. Then you've got personality, you get dress and personal style, which matters in this game. You get motivations, relationships, things you value. You value most, and then you've got things like your background, what your background is, and you can choose these as well. But it's nice because there's so many options. This is a very personalised, customisable character, which is great, because I think this is one of the challenges RPGs can face, is that we live in a world where computer games are so customisable. Your character is so much customised, it can be customised so much. And actually this is good, you know, this fits that whole thing. So you've got the depth of character creation is something that really stands out, actually. I've been so impressed with from reading it. Then we've got the rules, and then for each rule there's decisions that you can make within that rule. There's things that, there's bits that can personalise your character within that role as well, which is, brilliant. Um, and there's lots of that. So there's lots and lots and lots of detail. So there's the media, the exec, the lawman, and you can see the idea. It's just a lot of depth as far as characters go. And then you've got the this is before you get the stats, by the way. This is not stats first. Now we're at the stats. So you've actually got all this story behind you by the time you come to consider your stat line, which is kind of a completely different way of doing it. A lot of RPGs seem to be stats first, and then you build on it, and then you build your story. This one, it's story, background, and then you get your stats out of that. I kind of like that. I kind of like that, because it is a crunchy... I would say my impression is this is quite a crunchy system. But actually, whenever you get down to it, I really like the fact that they're making you think of a story too. So method 1 for Street Rats, you basically roll a dice and then you pick out what you want. You pick out what you get, sorry. Method 2, slightly different. You roll a d10 for each stat. And then method 3, if I can get it, it's basically, from what I can remember, it's you calculate, you add them all together, you give them a specific number of points, and then you basically have to make them work. It's a bit more calculated. And then you get the derived stat table for, I think it's for endurance and humanity, is that right? Body and humanity, hit points and humanity. Then you get all your skills, and there's a good body of skills to look at, and it goes through again how to generate those in the 3 systems, and that's part of the reason why there's so many tables. And then we get into the weapons, and then we, and there's so much kit, and this is core books. There's lots of kit in here, and that's brilliant. I love the depth that you're getting with this. So then you get into, that's not even yet, that isn't our character made yet, because then we get the cyberpunk bit. So then we get any cyber that we put in, so any cyberware that they get. So then, finally, once you get through all of that, you are looking at basically your character generated. Now I just want to see if I can see how. So we're looking at here from page 20, you can say page 28 through to page 120, about 100 pages for character generation. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean you've got 100 pages to wade through for each character. Actually, for each character, you're going to have probably a third of that, and there's a complex way through, and there's a very simple way through. So, actually, I think it's a really, really good system. It's certainly, you're going to come out with a character at the end of it that you're going to know inside out and really have an idea of, because it's a process. It's going to take you a little bit of time, a little bit of thought, and it's brilliant. I really like it. I love character generation anyway. It's one of my favourite things in RPGs. Then we get the story, another little story, and then we get the basics of resolution. So how you do things in the game, what different actions do, and we get into things like, what different skills do, and a little bit more depth and detail into the rest, and they give you sort of things like base 10, base 14, base 8. It lets you sort of start to get an idea of, okay, what's a good base number, and there's a lot, every skill's covered, and I'm flicking through a little bit quick there. And then we get into some so the abilities that are sort of role specific. And then where are we at? Yeah, so we get role specific, and then we get this idea of team members, I think. Yeah, I think that's it. And sort of creating NPCs, from what I can remember. These are sort of your NPC type things, I think. And then we've got vehicles, a bit about vehicles, quite a lot from what I can recall. And then we get basically combat Friday Night Firefight, which is quite a nice little touch. And that goes on quite a lot, and lots of detail. interesting things like, cover material, bank vault door. This tells you a lot about the game, really. Some of the things that are there. You've got a bit about sort of armour. Human shields are put in there, which is interesting. Vehicle combat. Then we do a little bit about reputation, another type of combat, face downs and all that kind of stuff. So sort of social conflict. Then we do rules for net running. Of course, this is an area that other games don't have. I suppose you've got your fantasy games with their magic, but net running is a different beast completely. And you've got then into quite a lot about net running. There's a lot of detail here, and that's kind of cool. And then we get into healing up people, trauma team, because again, this is a fairly chunky bit of the game by the look of it, and how to get somebody fixed up. And then a bit about the future. So this is the history, and I've read through a good chunk of this now, and I'm quite enjoying it. It's good. There's a lot of depth in this world. There's a lot going on, and that's really nice, because I don't know, it's kind of cool. Then you've got a bit about the time of the Red, which was this event, or I suppose set of events really, and then a bit about corporations. And there's tons and tons. I'm not going to flick through everything there. There's a couple of ones where I'm just taking a page out. Then we get a bit about Night City itself, and you've got what it was like in the past, what's like now, I think, yeah. So what happened at different points, and where it is now, and different factions and people in it. Lots of different people in here, which I quite like, because you can use that as gangs. There's a lot of depth to the world that you're inhabiting. This is something that's really stood out to me. Now this bit is the different areas and what they're like, and then we've got everyday life. Really nice touch. What is it like to live in this world? Do you see the depth that's going in? Do you see the depth? There's a lot of it, and it's really interesting. It's a bit intimidating, if I'm really honest, as somebody who's not played before, but this is an investment. This is a campaign-based game. This isn't one-shot territory. This is, something else. So then we get a bit of the street economy, how it works, what's on the shelves, how to buy different bits and pieces. Really, really nice. I mean, you've got so much depth. It's just mind-boggling to some extent. And then you look at it and you go, I see, that's awesome. Once I get my head around this stuff, there's enough here. This is years and years of stuff. This is a world that I can walk into, and as a GM, I can start to really develop my stories in it. And the more I'm studying this, the more I'm going, they could do a bit of that. Oh, that'll be interesting. They could play that. So there's a lot going on in this. How to make a living in the cyberpunk world, and different types of hustles. And then we've got, how do I run this game anyway? I love that. So how do I run it? And it starts to talk to you a bit about that. And the GM bit, I think is quite cool. I think it's really interesting and actually very well written. Is my impression. Having said that, it's still a lot to get through, and I still have to get my head around this quite a bit. So how to run Cyberpunk. What are the principles? And you can see a lot of games with this bit's 3-4 pages. That's a lot. This is a lot of stuff on how to run it. And then we get all our different NPCs that you're going to use as GM. Encounters in the Red, regional variations and bits and pieces, and it's great. It's great. There's a little sort of generator for, I think it's for daytime encounters. And then you basically get nighttime, evening encounters, and you roll these up. Standard little generator thing. Midnight encounters, and then scream sheets. So these are basically a page or two for instructions for running a scenario during a game. So you get some scream sheets to help you, and I think it's 3 of them, and these are pretty decent actually. and they give you a nice open-ended kind of way of that you can adapt. And then finally we get another story. I think this is the finally bit. And actually, by the end of this, you're sort of going, wow, wow, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff. And I don't mind that. And then I get my standard sort of character sheet stuff, and then I get an index. The index is going to be used a lot. It is a lot of stuff. This is a dense book. There's a lot to get through. It's a system that may just be because I'm hitting it cold. If you've played Cyberpunk before, I suspect it's going to be a bit more straightforward. For me, that's not necessarily the case because I'm new to it. But you know what? I'm actually looking at it and going, this is kind of awesome. I like this. This has got potential to be one of my, a go-to game. It's certainly going to be something I'm going to try and get a campaign going on, because I think it's got a lot of legs in it. There's a lot going on there that's really, really interesting and really, really intriguing. For those of you who watch this, you know that everything we get is through our hard-earned pence. So please like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out. Really keeps the wheels turning. We do have a wee T-shirt thing as well. If you go onto Teespring and hunt out Box to Board, you'll see it. I'll put a link somewhere at some point. We will be doing more content on Cyberpunk. If you don't want to miss it, please get yourself subscribed to the channel. That'd be really good, and it'd be absolutely fantastic to have you. And yeah, comment below if there's things that you sit and you go, actually, you've missed this bit out. This is awesome. Do that. Okay, please comment below. Really appreciate those, and I know that some of you have got much more experience with this game, this system than I do, so it'd be brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Have a lovely evening, and I shall see you next time, and bye-bye.